What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the newest video here on the channel. For those of you who watched the video from 2 weeks ago, you saw some of my favorite reduced patterned Barneck Scrub Pythons in the collection. Well, today we're going all the way to the other end of the spectrum, and I'm showing you some of my favorite heavy patterned Barneck Scrub Pythons. This will be a two-part series, and the one today will be some of my favorite younger animals. I'm going to be showing you some offspring from two clutches, one from 2024 and one from 2022. Some of my absolute favorite holdback animals in the collection that I'm very excited to get into the breeding plan in the future. So without further ado, let me get out the first snake. All right, so we're starting off this video with a bang. This is one of my 2024 holdback females, and she actually just shed in the last couple of days, so right in time for the video. I mean, this to me is just about as close to what you could probably consider like a textbook Barneck Scrub Python, with just that super high contrast between the black and the tan coloration, as well as just perfectly spaced, very symmetrical bars down. I mean, down really much more of the body than you typically get bars within a Barneck Scrub Python before it fades into the tail pattern. I mean, sometimes you'll find Barnecks where you only get the bar pattern for about the first third of the body. The first half is kind of typical. So to get one where you could even really say maybe 60% of the body has the barred patterning, that's not very common. This one is from a female that is really, really high gold. We will throw a picture of her up on the screen right now for you to see. So I'm really hoping that this one and her siblings will develop that more gold coloration over time. The male has a good gold complementary color as well. The dad of the clutch will show him as well. These guys are only about 7 months old right now, so they are definitely still in the early stages of their ontogenic color change. And at this stage of the game, usually they still are pretty red. So the fact that these guys don't have any red coloration at all on them anymore is pretty interesting. I'm not completely sure what that means in terms of their development, but I really do hope that they will turn more golden coloration over time. With that said, though, if this is what they end up looking like going forward, you will not hear a single complaint from me, because the way that I look at it, this is basically your quintessential Barneck Scrub Python. So this right here is a male sibling of that last snake I just had out. And as you can see, some pretty stark differences, but also some similarities as well. The biggest difference is just this snake is overall darker, especially when it comes to the base color, as well as the tail. Where on that last snake, the tail, although it did fade to a bit of a darker color, not quite as dark as this one. And on this guy, that tan base color is definitely a couple shades on the darker side. Another big difference as well is in the banding, where that last female had really textbook classic banding. This guy's is kind of all over the place, which I really, really like. That kind of zigzag look on the neck, and then kind of down the body, almost kind of like a W here. Very few true kind of typical bands until you get around the midway point of the body right there. Really, really interesting. I always love Barnecks that kind of have this strange phenotype where the banding is distinctive and high contrast, but it really is kind of all over the place. One project that I think would be really cool to do for the long run is to try to line breed Barnecks to where they have like a zigzag pattern down their entire body, or I guess down until the tail pattern comes in, which I think is probably entirely possible with multiple generations of captive breeding. I just think that a really nice high contrast zigzagged Barneck would be a really, really amazing snake. So another one, obviously like its sibling, that I'm hoping will have more of a golden coloration come in over time. Like I said, these animals are only about 7 months old, so still very, very early on in their color progression. As I've said before, Barneck Scrub Pythons, or really all Scrub Pythons, but if we're talking about Barnecks in particular, the majority of their color change comes within the first 2 years or so of life. After that, really the only thing you'll see is a little bit of progression within their base color. And typically speaking, it only gets better from where they are. So another really beautiful animal from the clutch. I'll grab you guys the third sibling I'm going to show today. All right, so here is one of, if not potentially, my favorite baby from this clutch, which is really hard to say considering how they all look. But definitely I can confidently say she's the most unique of the clutch. I really have never seen another Barneck look like this. despite being how young they are, she has this insanely light coloration, which she was essentially almost born with. She was a lot more kind of like a light red coloration as a baby. We'll throw a picture of her when she was younger up on the screen. But it was really obvious from day one how light colored she was going to be. And this color, honestly, is the color that I almost most often will see on like a more reduced pattern animal, especially with how light her tail is. I mean, her tail right now is damn near like purple. Um, and then her pattern is not the heaviest, but it is very defined where it is. I love this like diamond that's just kind of sitting there in the middle of her back. And then up front, it's almost kind of like, I don't know, it's like almost like hieroglyphics or something. So just the way that her banding is shaped, especially early on in her body, is just super unique. And her portholes on the side are very, very strong, really wide portholes. The banding near the mid body almost kind of hollows out a little bit, which is a look that I have on some of my banded rock rattlesnakes that I'm a big fan of. Can't say I really have that look in Barneck Scrub Pythons up until this point. So I could probably do an entire video just on this one snake alone, honestly. She is just, I mean, one of the handful of the most special snakes I have ever hatched out, and one that I know will be with me for a very, very long time. All right, and this is the last one to show from the clutch. This is another male, and he's pretty big. Some of these guys have really taken off as far as growth goes. I would say that this clutch has probably grown the fastest of any clutch that I've had. They were all right on food from day one. Some scrub pythons can take a little while to get going on food, but these guys wasted absolutely no time at all. And kind of like you've seen with the other siblings, this guy's a very light base color for his age. This was probably the first one in the clutch to develop that to where it seemed kind of notable how light his coloration was for being so young. He has a pretty interesting pattern as well, as far as kind of atypical banding, some of that zigzag pattern throughout, and then a really, really nice dark tail on him as well. So another instance where kind of that pattern goes a little bit further down the body than you may see in some other Barnecks. So just very, very unique, very strange, kind of an interesting distribution of pattern. And, just like the rest of them, I really am just, I'm beyond words as to how this clutch came out and the potential that these guys have going forward. In 4 years or so when they're breeding, I'm going to be very, very happy that we've made it that far. All right, now we're moving on to the 2022 clutch of Barneck Scrub Pythons that I have some holdbacks from. This clutch was really important to me because up until this point, I actually really hadn't produced many male Barnecks that had really high pattern. As you guys will see in the next video in this series, had some pretty good luck with the females as far as hitting some really, really nice individuals, but the males not so much. And this clutch here really saved me, as you will see. Like, for instance, this male right here. Really, really nice, crisp banding on this guy, and really cool base coloration as well. I was hoping when these guys originally hatched that they would have kind of that orangish gold base color. Both of the parents had really, really nice coloration, patterning as well. So the fact that over time this color developed in these animals is something that I'm very, very happy about. And they have interesting tails as well, particularly this one, where overall this is on the darker end of the spectrum for Barnecks, but the tail almost fades into more of like a gold coloration than anything else. There's kind of some dirtier black markings on the dorsal, but as you get to the side, it really is pretty uniformly gold. Really nice, clean portholes as well, really crisp banding, and pretty cool neck pattern as well. This male is definitely a special one that I am very excited to put into my breeding projects in the future. All right, this is another sibling from that clutch. This guy has a bit of a different coloration than all of his siblings, as you'll see as I continue to bring more out. He has kind of more of a pale tan coloration compared to his siblings, which are a lot more on the gold side of the spectrum. But what makes this guy really special is his pattern. So I really can't say I've ever seen another Barneck with this pattern that he has. And it's very hard to put into words. If anything, I would just kind of call it like very noisy, where kind of almost has like hollow bands on the side, very irregular pattern. He has a really cool, actually really dual split neck bar, which is another thing you don't really see super commonly. And just kind of, I don't know, just like I said, really hard to describe, kind of all over the place pattern. Fades out into a pretty light colored tail, which is interesting considering the pairing. They're both kind of darker individuals, particularly the female has a really, really dark tail. And I mean, a snake that has been very interesting to watch progress. And it's kind of taught me a lot about how these guys change color over time, how baby pattern affects what they're going to end up looking like when they're more developed. And really, he's not done yet. I would assume so. I mean, we'll run some B-roll through here as well of his side pattern, where you can really see that there is just, I mean, weird outlining of scales, weird coloration of scales. It's very all over the place. And he's one that I'm very curious to see what his offspring will look like eventually. It'll probably be kind of difficult to pick exactly the right female to breed him to, but in the right pairing, he could throw what I would say would be probably some babies that look like nothing we've ever seen before. So really, really unique and very special snake. All right, so while I said this clutch yielded for me some males that I desperately needed, I got one very beautiful female holdback out of the clutch as well, and here she is. So to me, she kind of almost looks like a tiger in a way, just kind of the way that her color and pattern come together. Similar to the last male that I just had out, she has some of those hollow side bands as well, which I think is a really, really cool look. And then similar like him as well, fades into that really cool kind of solid golden tail. She actually looks almost identical to a female from my clutch that I produced in 2020, my first scrub python clutch. So before I had sexed any of these babies, I was really hoping that this was actually going to be one of the boys, because that would be like the perfect unrelated pairing for me. But definitely not complaining with this one here being a female. Just an incredible Barneck, really just a kind of a pretty textbook example of what you could, what you really, all you could ask for out of a higher patterned Barneck. And again, kind of like what I was saying earlier about the tail, I wasn't expecting these guys to have lighter tails. When it comes to Barnecks, you really have two different phenotypes when it comes to the tail. It either fades into a continuation of their base color or it fades to black and or close to black. And with this clutch in particular, I was really expecting them to kind of fade more towards a darker tail. So the fact that one like this has a lighter tail coloration to me is really, really cool. And something that I think will be an interesting part of line breeding going forward is not just base color and patterning, but also tail coloration. So this right here is another male from the clutch. And he's very hard to describe. I'll do my best. He has one of the strangest kind of base color arrangements, I guess, of any Barneck I've really ever seen. We'll definitely have to do some close-up shots of him, but it almost is kind of like he's like almost like a three-layered look to him, where he has the black bars and then the base color where you would get your tan, your gold, your whatever. He has like a light interior color and then like a darker ring of coloration around it. It it's very, very interesting. He's actually about to go into shed, so you guys don't get quite the full extent of his coloration, but you can still see the pattern just as easily nonetheless. And then, by the neck, really, really dark consistently. He's very, very strange, interesting, almost kind of like a cartoon patterning on a scrub python in a way. From day one, this guy was one of the ones from the clutch that I was kind of most excited about going forward. But the way that his color developed is nothing that I could have ever predicted. Just very interesting, and one that I do believe will probably continue to change even further until he's probably 4 or 5 years old, where the way that his color looks now may not even be his final state, or he might even have more depth of coloration by the time he gets older as well. And to kind of continue the tail conversation with this clutch, he has probably one of the darker tails from the clutch, a little bit more kind of banded along the tail. Just a very interesting look, has kind of aspects of all of his siblings wrapped into one, but then that weird, like I kind of said, cartoony pattern is something that none of his other siblings have, which makes this guy super unique. All right, so this is another male from the clutch. And unfortunately, this is actually about as dark as you'll probably ever see him right now, which says a lot about his coloration. I've spoken before here on a couple videos about when raising Barneck Scrub Pythons, patience is really a virtue when it comes to seeing how they're going to grow and develop. And this guy to me has probably been the number one example so far in my time breeding this species. When the clutch hatched out, you could see a lot of patterning in all of the babies from day one. So I already knew that these were going to be really, really nice individuals. But this guy probably had, and still does, probably has the kind of least spectacular pattern from the clutch. But I'm glad I held on to him because he might have the best coloration of all of them. Really, really nice, high gold, especially you can see on the tail. Like I said, he's not looking his best right now, but without a doubt, this guy will certainly appear on the channel for the years to come. And he's going to be a very important part of breeding projects I have that are centered around that gold coloration, especially considering he's going to come from a pairing that's unrelated to anything that I'm already kind of particularly thinking about line breeding for that gold coloration. So to have that new blood to bolster the bloodlines and potentially throw out some looks that I wouldn't be able to get from some other pairings is definitely something that I'm excited about. So very grateful that I kind of took my time with this male, gave him some time to show me exactly what he would look like, because if somebody posted this snake in their collection a couple years later and I saw how he looked now, I don't know if I'd be able to sleep at night knowing that I let this guy go. All right, saved, in my opinion, the best for last here with this guy. This is, again, a sibling of all these bigger ones I've been showing you guys. And this is, I would say, probably the best one of the clutch. He has just a very, very interesting pattern. I hate to use this word when regarding a scrub python, but it's almost like a reticulated pattern on a lot of his body. A lot of those zigzags up near the front, and almost kind of like that webbing pattern that reticulated would describe near the middle of the body. One aspect of him that is super unique is his kind of like double layered portholes on the side. We'll do some close up shots so you guys can see. But a lot of Barneck Scrub Pythons will have these kind of lighter colored portholes down the side of the body. But then kind of above his regular portholes are these kind of smaller portholes where the individual scales are outlined. So these kind of like little highlighted dots, a layer above the portholes, so to speak, down the length of his body. I've never seen another Barneck with that appearance other than him. So it'd be hard to say if that would pass on to offspring or not. But my gosh, no matter what his babies look like, I know they're going to be absolutely spectacular. So definitely giving him a try this year, despite being young. He's a very bold snake. He's already producing sperm plugs, so he's definitely mature enough. Whether or not he actually wants to do anything is kind of going to be the next question. But I do know that no matter what, he's going to be one of my most important breeder males for the long haul, and one that'll be integral in producing some of the nicest multi-generation, high patterned Barneck Scrub Pythons. And yeah, this means everything to me. I really just, these projects with these snakes, making them as beautiful as we can with as good a demeanors as can be as well, is I don't know, that's what I am very passionate about with these snakes. So very much excited for the future as it pertains to highly patterned Barneck Scrub Pythons. All right, everybody, thank you for watching the video. Hopefully after seeing all these snakes, some of you guys are even more obsessed with Barneck Scrub Pythons than you already were. I know every time for me I look at these snakes, that obsession just grows stronger and stronger. But for everyone here on YouTube, if you could please subscribe, like, share the videos, that would be wonderful. Leave a comment if you would like to. Hit that notification bell too so you never miss a future episode. For me, I'm on Instagram at Scrub Shepherd, Stephen Cush on Facebook. And I also host a podcast every Wednesday night live on the Trap Talk Reptile Network called Cush's Corner. It is also available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. I'm also on Morph Market under Cush Reptile. With all that said, thank you guys for watching the video, and we'll catch you all back here next week for a new one.